And good afternoon, everyone. And of course, Ambassador Luis de Sousa, who we have the honor to host this afternoon is this event by Athena Lab for April. And it's a great honor because Ambassador came to Chile in the midst of a pandemic, which has been really difficult, has been limiting all our movements, and most likely has also limited all this onboarding period for ambassadors. So we consider this may be an opportunity, a very interesting opportunity for her as well, so she can also be familiarized with an audience like you, who are always interested in all aspects related to international affairs, security, defense, science, and technology, right? And so many other issues which we hope to address today. On behalf of the board of Athena Lab and of course the team, we'd like to use this opportunity to tell the ambassador or give our condolences for the recent passing of His Majesty Prince Philip of Edinburgh. All of us who were looking at this, watching the funeral on the weekend and follow this process, were really moved by the solemnity of the ceremony and also the value given to national symbols, right? Or what he embodied for the crown, for the country, for the Navy, where he also served in an exemplary fashion. And this also talks about what the United Kingdom is as a whole. It's about tradition on one hand, a rich, valuable tradition, but it's also about modernity, the future. And to talk about this future is that we invited Ambassador de Sousa because of the fact that the United Kingdom last month actually released a document, published two actually, but one document, which is called the Integrated Review. And this Integrated Review, which is a strategy to explain how Great Britain is going to be inserted into global affairs post Brexit. And this document here, Global Britain in a Competitive Age, which can be downloaded from internet, which I recommend to you. And we have been commenting on this in other sites because we consider it to be a relevant document. It's really well made. It has some aspects, for example, which we have a difficult time doing in Chile, such as integrating the various dimensions of a power of state, soft power, diplomacy, military power, economics, and also communications, and everything to be brought to bear for a goal, which is a virtuous insertion in the world, which is what the United Kingdom is planning on doing. In Chile, we have a silo culture, so that's why this document is so powerful for us. And it also has some other interesting emphasis that the ambassador is going to speak about, which is the fact, for example, that it really is betting on the Indo-Pacific, right? It considers the Indo-Pacific as a priority region, and this is important for a Pacific nation as Chile. Chile is in the Pacific, a bit far away, yes, from the main areas of power, but at least today is in one border of the board where these global stakes are at play. So after this introduction, I'd like to give the floor to the Ambassador de Sousa, to whom once again I'd like to welcome and thank for being here. And then you will also be able to ask your questions directly. Ambassador, thank you so much. Thank you, Juan Pablo, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank Athena Lab for organizing today's event, and I'd like to thank all of you for giving us your time and attention to join us today. I'm speaking about the ambassador's residence here in Santiago. Even though, as commented by Juan Pablo, it's not possible to hold this event live, I'm happy that we can still meet if virtually, and that Athena Lab can continue with its important mission of exploring the geopolitical and strategic issues which are key for all of us. Today's conference is the first of what I hope will be many more collaborations with Athena Lab and all of you, your active and committed community in Chile and the world. I'd like to use today's session to talk about exactly this integrated review of security, defense, development, and foreign policy of my government called United Kingdom or Global Britain in a Competitive Age. which is the most comprehensive analysis for British foreign policy since the Cold War. Published in March and developed under the guidance of our Prime Minister, this review establishes the international strategy for Great Britain for this decade and the future. Its objective is providing a clear analysis of the capacities of the United Kingdom, along with opportunities and threats that we face in the world today and tomorrow. Due to the product of more than 1 year of work across the whole government and consultations with a broad range of organizations and external thinkers as well, this review offers our vision of the role of the United Kingdom in the world until 2030 and the measures that will be adopted at home and abroad, including here in Chile, for ensuring that we become better, stronger, and safer in a more competitive age. And after 1 month since this document was released and published, I hope that all of you had the chance to read its 111 page. But I know whether you have read the review or not, I hope that this event is useful for you by expanding what this new fundamental text means for the relationship between the United Kingdom and the world, and how its conclusions formulated the role played by the UK in the global scenario. I wanted to begin by mentioning the essential fact that how lucky the British people are and how everything is closely related to all events happening in the world. And about limited natural resources, we have always been thriving as a maritime trading nation. In 2019, being the fifth largest economy of the world, the UK sold goods and services abroad for a total value of 690 billion pounds, equivalent to a third of our GDP. By keeping millions of ways of life and livelihoods across the country and connecting our economy to almost all the other markets in the world. Of course, this perspective aimed towards abroad, both a liberal and free trade focused, is the reason why we enjoy such a close and historical relationship with Chile. Even in spite of the pandemic, in 2020, our trading bilateral relations between the UK and Chile reached the value of more than 1.6 billion pounds. Chile remains our third trading partner in the region. And this global perspective is at the heart of the concept of a global Britain, a concept which you will hear a lot today and which has an important role in this integrated review. It is an expression which has as its main objective to capture the international character of the perspective of the UK as a people, as a country, related to our history and our future as well in the world. By observing this in the strategic context in which we operate now, we see both challenges and important threats, with three dangerous and overarching threats or trends arising from this. The first is the global order being eroded. This global order we have had since the Second World War and which seems to be stronger than ever just a generation ago. Now, democracy it is fair to say, is under stress. We see an increasing competition between states' interest standards and values against authoritarian states and malicious actors looking to undermine democratic systems and the openness which are the basis of our way of life. Actually, in this decade, if we are hoping for a combined GDP of the authoritarian regimes to be greater than the combined GDP of the democracies in the world. That is, tyranny will be wealthier than freedom. And we care about that in the UK. And you in Chile as well, along other democracies in the world, because we know that the most stable democracies that respect freedom have a lower likelihood of going to war, hosting, harboring terrorists, or causing escalations in immigration flows. Usually, it is easier to trade with democracies, and it's also easier to cooperate with them for solving our shared problems. The second trend is the new threats have arisen. All of us are now used to speaking about asymmetrical wars since 9/11, but technology move towards malicious causes is creating new dangerous weapons and allowing for new ways of attacking us, which are not enough to spark an armed conflict. In the UK, we know about this very well. Last month, we reached 3 years since the Russian state used a chemical weapon in Salisbury, killing an innocent British national and also creating fear in a quiet British city. At the same time, the states and terrorist groups and also criminal organizations are exploiting technology for their own benefit to strike our homes, our businesses, and our infrastructure. The third trend in our time is maybe the most dangerous of all, is of what we can only consider as potentially existential threats. Threats to our civilization, threats to large groups of the global population, or even threats to our planet. We can see how COVID has demonstrated how interconnected we are in the modern world. And also, we are also facing the possibility of a catastrophic climate change. And we can see how technology is proliferating for nuclear weapons with a very real risk of them being in the hands of people who you cannot reason with. In spite of all these threats, we don't believe we should ever fall into despair or frustration. Rather, we believe that there are powerful reasons to feel optimistic about our future. And our deteriorating international order can be repaired and reinforced. We can counteract these new threats and these new challenges. And as we have demonstrated that we can do during this pandemic by means of collaboration between, for example, scientists to create new vaccines and governments for strengthening egalitarian access to these vaccines, we can prove that the benefits of liberal democracies and free markets are the best model for social and economic progress for mankind. We can shape standards governing new technologies so as to ensure that we can benefit at the same time that we preserve our safety and freedoms. And we can also ensure that countries work together to address the greatest global challenges. We believe that the United Kingdom has a main role in all of this, working together with our friends and partners, allies, countries that are like-minded and that share our fundamental convictions, such as Chile. The first priority arising from this integrated review is to make our capacity grow and nourish this capacity for scientific and technological innovation with the purpose of keeping and strengthening the strategic advantages that we have The fast pace of technological changes is transforming aspects of our lives, which are fundamental, for example, by reshaping our economies and societies. So, this review addresses how the UK is going to leverage our comparative advantage in technology and science to open new markets as a scientific power and also as cyber power, which is both responsible and democratic, to reinforce both our national prosperity and our international relationships. To do this, we are increasing our government investment in scientific research and technological research as well by moving towards a 2.4% of our GDP in the UK. And we are also going to be investing 800 million GDP for establishing a new research agency for advanced research and development agency supporting cutting edge technology. Our second strategic priority will be about increasing our post-Brexit efforts, being pioneers in this strategic approach to free government and trade. And that's why ever since we left the United European Union, we have been establishing trade agreement with 67 countries, including Chile and also the European Union. And that's why we have been starting negotiations so the United Kingdom so we can have a progressive and comprehensive agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We are happy to see that the Chilean government supports the United Kingdom being a part of the treaty, joining this free trade agreement of billions of pounds would both reinforce the access of the UK to modern key economies, such as that of Chile, and it would be creating greater opportunities for future industries such as technology and digital services, data, and renewable energies. Together with our efforts to reach new markets, this review also mentions how we are going to work so as to strengthen the global trade system and also to update our regulatory global environment, and especially in the environment, services, and the digital sectors. And we are committed to work against protectionisms and reinforce the power of global free trade to help the world recover better than ever and to build back better after the economic impact of the pandemic. And also investing both in our experience in science and technology and our capacity for economic recovery are vital elements of the third strategic priority, which is articulated in this review, which is our safety. The United Kingdom has decided to invest 24 billion additional pounds in defense during the next 4 years, allowing the total modernization of our armed force by restoring our position as the main naval power in Europe, and also moving forward with the renewal of our nuclear deterrence force. At the end of this year, the HMS Queen Elizabeth, which is the flagship warship for our Navy, shall have an inaugural deployment leading a carrier strike group in a 32,000 kilometers back and forth trajectory to the Indo-Pacific Ocean. By holding exercises with allies and partners of the UK throughout its path and demonstrating the importance we place in freedom of navigation of the seas. We will be spending around 7 billion pounds during the next 4 years in research and development related to defense. By means of the National Center for Cybernetic Security of the United Kingdom and our partnerships with different businesses, we will continue being a global leader in cybersecurity. And also, by means of our new national cyber force, we are investing more than ever to be ahead of the alliances between hostile states and criminal organizations that try to exploit our computers, tablets, and smartphones, whether to steal, to spy, or disseminate fake news and lies. And we will continue adapting ourselves to go against the frankly predatory opportunism of states such as Russia, Iran, North Korea, among others. And the fourth and last strategic priority we have is to stay one step ahead as a force for good in the world. And since COVID and the threat of climate change, it has never been clearer than now that the national interest of the United Kingdom is closely related to the necessity of facing international challenges, which we are all concerned about. And we believe that as a government, we can and have to help alleviate the suffering of the world. And we have a moral responsibility and a substantial interest in our planet and the broadest conditions for ensuring peace and stability. Therefore, we are committed that the United Kingdom will join its allies and friends so as to guarantee that free societies thrive by sharing risks and burdens of addressing the most difficult problems of the world. And we can see this clearly in the commitment of United Kingdoms of strengthening our global response to this COVID-19 pandemic. The United Kingdom is the main contributor in the world to global partnerships for vaccines, which is working intensely to try and defeat COVID-19 by contributing 548 million pounds to COVAX, which is the international mechanism designed for ensuring fast, fair, and equitable access to vaccines against COVID, and 1.6 billion pounds to Gavi, the Private Partnership Association on Health at the global level, leading the vaccination efforts in the poorest countries of the world. And we do this not only to ask in accordance to our sense of justice, but also because we know that this global pandemic, we are not going to be safe until we are all safe. And we have the same commitment to equality and justice, and this means that we will continue supporting open societies and advocating for human rights. The United Kingdom has been leading the condemnation by the international community for the military coup in Myanmar, quickly applying sanctions against this military because of their severe violation of human rights. We will also continue leading the international community in the expression of our deep concern due to the mass arrests of Uyghurs by China in the Xinjiang province, and also encouraging China to meet their international obligations regarding human rights, which they freely entered into. And that's why we have also been offering a place, a safe haven for to 3 million Chinese in Hong Kong who may fear persecution because of what is happening in Hong Kong. To wrap this up and looking towards the future, 2021 brings us as the UK a unique opportunity to redefine and reestablish the role and place of our country in the world. We are leading the G6, and we will also come after Chile when we preside the 26th Conference of United Nations on Climate Change in November. Our Our exit of the European Union has given us a unique opportunity to reconsider many aspects of our national and international policies by building, by means of existing friendships, but also looking even further than that. This integrated review establishes how we are going to do this by our additional investments and our new capacities provided by this. We believe that the United Kingdom can thrive in an increasingly competitive world and fulfill its historical mission as a force for good by maximizing opportunities for the UK, but also inspiring others to follow up and advocate for what's right. I hope I can also hear your thoughts and continue this debate. And I will give the floor back to Juan Pablo. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador, for your excellent presentation. To be honest, I believe we are really clear for most of us regarding the priorities of the United Kingdom in this new stage of their place in the world, and also how they are being articulated in a very coherent manner, and also how this strategy is looking to also be supported by other partners in other regions. And it's also a job for Chile to also look how to deepen our friendship with the UK, since we have some areas such as science. Our navies are really connected due to different historical reasons. And we have common interests, for example, in the Antarctic, and we're also working with this in common. So we believe that this comprehensive review is good for partners and the rivals, as I wrote, because it makes clear what the priorities, red lines are. For example, defense of democracy is an important topic for the United Kingdom, and they will do what they can to promote democracy and help defend democracy, and both in the online and the offline worlds, as you also made clear. With these thoughts, I will now move on to the question, the Q&A section, which we already have. First of all, we have George Brown. George is asking, do you have any comments regarding the statement made April 15 between the Department of Defense of the United States and the Ministry of Defense of the UK regarding the coordination they are going to be looking for in strategic documents? Do you know what the scope of this coordination is? Well, there's a coordination between our ministries of defense, our armed forces, all our security forces remains as close as we can in the world. And we know that the new US administration is also preparing a review of their policies in this space. And evidently, we have been discussing and talking a lot about the content of our analysis, our priorities, and many common issues. And really something that we have been trying to be as known as possible in this integrated review is not just that the United Kingdom needs a coherent and coordinated policy, but also we have to work closer than ever with our partners and friends in the world. First of all, of course, the United States. So then we there are many different issues, and the first about what we expect, and then try to collaborate in as closely as we can, including the military areas. Thank you so much. Jorge Chubretovic is asking a question related to defense, which is something you also mentioned when you were talking about this additional investment of 24 billion pounds in the next 4 years. Which we know happens after years of budget cuts in this aspect, which, for example, had an effect on the Royal Navy. And what he is asking is that if are there many difficulties in this discussion, parliamentary discussion and the interaction with civil society in the process of approving all these defense investments and all these actualizations in this document, which is also published 1 week after the integrated review? There is another specific document about defense, which we also commented on, where basically the United Kingdom, right, accounts of how they are going to be setting their forces up in terms of numbers, priorities, and modernization. And there is lots of discussion about what they are doing, if you like, what the government is proposing in terms of defense. Okay, yes, of course, there is a discussion. There are differences in political perspectives and the different specialists involved and in the development of our plans, and also which has a different perspectives, which is the essence of democracy. And even though we have a significant additional investment in armed forces to facilitate the modernization of our capacities, to that we have to continue making hard decisions after implementing all the plans that we have developed. Our armed forces are going to have a very different profile, and that creates uncertainty, creates debate. It's healthy. We're about our ideas, our proposals, because with this involvement by different people, we can strengthen our plans. And then we are convinced that this investment, this modernization, to face these threats, not only today, but also the threats we see coming tomorrow. It's the first responsibility of any government, which is about ensuring that everything is better for their people, their territory, their assets, and we need to have these new capacities. And we are also going to be benefited by collaboration with partners, our friends, the private sector, and our allies. And we are sure that with these options by the government, we are going to be better prepared. We, after trying to write this way of new technology, so we can better safeguard what we care about, our way of life, our freedom in a world full of threats that are both evident and under development. Okay, Christian Rayo is asking, what do you think regarding this Nord Stream 2 oleoduct, right? For those of you who don't know, which goes through the sea and is bringing gas from Russia to Germany, actually he's saying that they don't want this for Europe because this is going to increase their dependency on Russia at a time where the situation is really difficult. What do you think about this regarding this step that continental Europe is taking and Germany in general with this? Well, this management of access to sustainable energy is is something that creates difficulties for all countries involved. For us, what's important is that energy policies contribute to reducing carbon emissions. And in this integrated review, we have highlighted the fight against climate change, which is the preservation of our biodiversity as their main objectives, which are critical for us. And any energy policy for us, in our opinion, must have this aspect taken into account. Also, yesterday, my government announced a new endeavor to reduce by 78% our carbon emissions by 2035. A signal of how seriously we take this fight, this challenge of climate change. So there are some strategic matters, some geopolitical matters which are involved in this project, but there is also a global aspect which is even more important, and we have to establish policies that increase our capacity to fight against climate change and the potentially catastrophic impacts on us and other countries in the world. Okay, perfect. I'm asking because there are a couple of questions that of my Diaz Purcell and Claudio Naya. They're asking about the Antarctic, which is a topic which we're also interested in. We believe that there are many different overlapping claims, but historically we have been working very well, for example, using the INACHI and the IS. We have a history, right, of rescues, Shackleton, and so on. Pardo pilot, we have a lot of common history that we share. And the question we have here, and which partly motivated a study which you may know about the Antarctic, which we did with a British Center of Study, the Henry Jackson Society, is asking, do you believe the geopolitical competition for the Antarctic is already ongoing, considering the fact that there is a growing presence of China and Russia in this frozen continent? What's the UK policy towards the Antarctic from here until 2030? That's what Matias and Claudio are asking about. Well, for us, for us, the Antarctic is governed by the Antarctic Treaty, which we have been supporting since the beginning and which continues being at the heart of our policy. It's a system which preserves the status quo of the continent and which prioritizes scientific research in the continent. It's evident that it's a resource which we need, which we already need, and which we still have a lot to learn about the role, about the critical and important role played by the Antarctic continent in the global system, about their climate, the oceans, and the biodiversity. There is so much to learn, and for us, this is a global asset which we have to protect and preserve in this system which has been serving the world well, the international community for so many decades. So for us, this is extremely important. Matters regarding the minerals prospecting and so on. Everything has to proceed under the terms of the Antarctic Treaty. Another question, same region. We have a question by Claudio Niada. What's the current and future stance of the United Kingdom regarding the Falkland Islands, which, as you know, there was the war 4 years ago because of the Argentinian invasion. They are always a diplomatic hotspot due to so many claims and complaints. Yes, regarding the South Atlantic, the United Kingdom reaffirms the right of islanders to decide their own future, including their economic development. We have no doubt whatsoever about our sovereignty on the Falkland Islands and also the islands on the south and the Sandwich Islands as well, and the maritime surrounding maritime areas. We don't have any doubts whatsoever regarding the principle and right of self-determination of the inhabitants of the Falkland Islands. And then, then, I mean, there is no change in our principles, and we are going to continue developing our relationship with the Falkland Islands and all our overseas territories in a modern fashion, which is based in shared values, partnerships, and the right of the people of each territory to decide their own future. That is why we defend our values and the rights of all people in these and all territories. And it is true, there are many different claims, there are difficulties in our relationship with Argentina, and we we'd like to guide our policies towards the future. And we are not going to ignore the fact. And it's important to show the due respect to everyone who is affected by this 1982 conflict, and particularly those the fallen and their families, the veterans on both sides, and islands inhabitants who have their own wishes, concerns, rights, and hopes. And the governments in United Kingdom and Argentina are committed to the humanitarian approach for this conflict, both for the fallen and their families and veterans on both sides. In this sense, nothing changed. Nothing is going to change in our policy related to the Falklands so far until the moment when the inhabitants of these islands decided as such. Thank you. And there is a question which also involves islands, but in the case in the Indian Ocean, and it's about the Chinese archipelago, which is looking for the sovereignty of the Mauritius Islands, and which should have an impact on this process pushed by the United Nations. Could you explain could you explain this conflict or this dispute on the Mauritius Islands? But I presume those who are asking about this believe this can be related to the situation in the Falkland Islands. Well, it is a completely different situation and the background. And we respect international law, but we also have responsibilities regarding this territory. And we are going to continue working for a for a solution which respects the rights and duties as well of all the various stakeholders. But we also believe and are sure of our sovereignty. We really take our responsibilities in this territory seriously, and all other territories, of course. Perfect. Okay, and there are some other not so territorial issues. There are two questions which are related to the priority in the integrated review being given by the UK to cybersecurity, and what is Great Britain doing, for example, to fight against cyber terrorism or cyber crime, which, to be honest, have increased during the pandemic as stated by all agencies that fight against these kind of crimes. Sorry, Juan Pablo. I didn't exactly understand the question. Can you repeat that? Okay, perfect. I will repeat the question. Sorry. What is the United Kingdom doing to improve on cybersecurity or fight against cybercrime or terrorism. Both have been increasing during the pandemic because we are all more connected than ever, as we can see now. And there are some malicious actors. You were also talking about this unholy alliance of state actors with some rogue actors in this matter. Okay, perfect, perfect. That's how it is, and also in many other areas, the pandemic has underscored um, on some of the challenges we face today in the cyberspace. We have a national cybersecurity strategy which establishes ambitious policies to protect the United Kingdom in cyberspace, to address cyber attacks, and protect our national critical infrastructure. And this is managed by means of the National Cybersecurity Program, and it has been supported by 1.9 billion investments in pounds. And this national program is committed to guaranteeing that the United Kingdom is as secure as possible, working together with partners from the authorities and the industry and the academic sector as well. That's another area where collaboration is more important than ever to innovate and establish better responses to these threats that we face. And we are proud of being leaders in cyber trends, and we are committed to advising organizations of all sizes about the most severe issues, such as, for example, changes in ransomware. And something important as well for the national protection of which lessons and experiences we can learn, for example, of third parties and friends. The second important impact is this creation and there is integrated review of this new cyber national force, which is a partnership of defense and intelligence working on cybernetic legal and ethical operations to undermine and deter state threats, terrorism, organized crime, and contribute to the UK forces and our allies. And we have to make the most of these opportunities being offered to us by cybernetic operations to protect our people against the modern threats, both online and offline. It is a capacity which started operating since April 2020 and which continues evolving in terms of our capacities, working as close as we can with our allies. I have I have many questions, actually. I have many different questions, to be honest. And this shows how interested our audience is. And I apologize beforehand because we are not going to be able to answer all questions now. But I'd like for us to address as many topics as possible. For example, Miguel Schweitzer is asking, for example, that in education and culture, there some specific initiatives from the UK that can support Chile or that Chile can join that or be a part of? Well, we have been working through the British Council in a project, for example, to try and reinforce teaching English as a language, not only in Chile, but all countries of the Pacific Alliance. And that, for us, language, English is a fundamental tool for anyone who wants to be a part of the modern world in trade, science, and technology to try and promote and leverage international collaboration, which is the cornerstone of the most important innovations here. We have recently seen, especially under this pandemic, that what we need to what we need to try and solve the issues that we face today and tomorrow. We need to cooperate. So it's just one example which I offered. The other example is that we have a scholarship program which is aimed towards the young leaders. It's an international program with 35 years of old by now. And we offer scholarships for young Chilean people to study a master's at a British university, which I don't know how the program came to be during the pandemic, but it's there, it happened. And with a lots of flexibility, willingness from our universities and our students as well. So these connections between people, language connections, and also I saw ever since I arrived how popular British culture is in Chile, and up to this day, it seems actually one of the one of the better received parts here is Chile is the crown. I don't know why, but there is this emotional relationship with the royal family, the history which we share. So it's really important to be there. And the last thing I want to mention in this instance is the role of the media. And we are really proud of the BBC. It's a national asset, but an international one as well. And in our policy, as a part of our priorities, we want to protect human rights, democracy, also protect and promote the important and fundamental role of the media in democracy as well, and also protect the journalists who face any threats from many different sources which they are fighting against in their important job of informing and keeping the population of the world informed. Okay, perfect, Ambassador. As I said, we are not going to be able to answer all questions, but there are many different questions, and you have been answering this. I can see that there are many questions. Yes, yes, we have many questions, but we ask all of you to keep in touch with Ambassador Luis. And to wrap up, we'd like to give the floor to the chair of the board of Athena Lab, Mr. Nicolas Ibanez, who, of course, wants to participate in this event. Nicolas, please, go ahead.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Juan Pablo. Of course, I'd like to, on behalf of the board of Athena Lab, I'd like to give our thanks to the ambassador, and of course, we'd like to recognize this. I mean, she is just arriving. She came to Chile not so long ago, and we are immensely happy to have such someone who is so knowledgeable and with this attitude, I'd say, this openness of honesty, this intellectual honesty, and this capacity to address such a wide range of issues. I mean, from this particular situation of some islands, some closer than others, and the emotional relationships we have between many Chileans. I mean, we could say, I hope, most actually, which feel this emotional bond with the British culture. And indeed, Downtown Abbey or The Crown and so many others have an impact here as they also have in the whole world, I'd say. going through issues such as biodiversity and all these different threats to our way of life, both present and future, so many others, so many different issues. And of course, the integrated review, that's what it is, an integrated review. I mean, it encompasses an extremely global view about the Great Britain and their situation in the world. A great example, I'd say, of an exercise which most likely we would do well to emulate in Chile. So, Ambassador, welcome to Chile. Okay. And someone related to the network that we work with taught me that Chile was,
decir, una nación del Pacífico Este. Por cierto,
by the way,
estamos
by the way,
geográficamente
we are
dentro del continente
geographically
americano,
in the
sudamericano,
American continent,
y
South
donde
America,
hay
right?
algunos
And
vínculos muy
where
cercanos,
we
ya sea
have
por
some very close
geografía o por la
relationship,
historia
whether because of
común,
our geography or
muy
our common
claramente
history. But
Chile, desde hace algún
clearly,
tiempo,
Chile, since long ago,
se visualiza más bien
visualizes
desarrollado
itself in
en un
some
sentido más como un
circles,
país
but
que mira
maybe very limited in
hacia
some
el
others,
Pacífico
but
como
is
hacia
looking
el mar.
towards the Pacific, towards the
Hace
sea.
poco tuvimos una
And not
interesante
so
conversación
long ago, we had a very
acerca de lo que
interesting
significa ser una
discussion
nación
about what it
marítima.
means to be a maritime nation.
Y evidentemente que Gran
And
Bretaña
evidently,
tiene
Great
mucho
Britain
que
has
enseñarnos.
so much to teach
Así
us.
que
So
esta primera conversación
this first conversation
estamos muy agradecidos por
is
su
something
tiempo,
we are really
por su
thankful
apertura
to
en esta
you for your
proyecto,
time, for
por
being
su
so
empatía
open-minded,
de,
for how kind
recibirnos.
you are by hosting
Cuenta
us.
con Athena Lab
And you can
y con
count
muchas
on
otras
Athena Lab and
entidades
so many other institutions, businesses,
institucionales que tienen
educational
vínculos muy
organizations,
cercanos
which have a
con
very
Great
close
Britain.
relationship with
Muy
Great
brevemente, en
Britain.
nombre del
Thank you
directorio,
so much once again on
esperamos
behalf of
tener la
our board,
oportunidad de
and
seguir
hopefully we can
conversando
have a
y
chance to
profundizar
continue talking to
algunos de
you
los temas que son
to
tan
deepen
importantes
some of
para
these
nuestro
issues which
futuro
are so
y
important
también
for the
para el
future
futuro
of the
global
world
de Chile.
and also the future of
Nuevamente,
Chile.
muchas
Once
gracias
again,
y hasta muy
thank
pronto.
you so much and see you soon.
Muchas gracias, Nicolás.
Thank you, Nicolas.
Gracias a ustedes también.
Thank you, actually. We also agree with Nicolas, of course, because indeed this has been a great opportunity to know you better. Hopefully we can continue this conversation later, hopefully face to face when the pandemic subsides. There will be more opportunities so our countries get closer than ever. So I think I can think about any instance where both countries have so many different topics to cooperate in. Actually, this integrated review is indeed because it is comprehensive and integrated. It encompasses science that we are working on, astronomy, climate change. We are also working on that. It also addresses security related aspects where we also cooperate. And I believe it's also a matter that we can work better in the future in many different issues where we have common priorities. But the most important part, I'd say, is that we have a common history in some aspects. We also have common interest and common values as well. And when we have both interests and values in common, it's easier than ever to work together. So once again, I thank you for your participation. We hope we can continue working, and everyone is more than welcome to continue following new events by Athena Lab and our publications and the different media. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Have a great evening. And Nicolas, John, Ambassador, thank you so much.